Thank you, Greg. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon for the keynote. And thank you to the ATC team for inviting me to come and speak this afternoon. Awesome venue, awesome event. Thank you so much. So as Greg mentioned, my name is Theresa Lanowitz, and I'm head of Cybersecurity Evangelism with AT&T Business. And prior to joining AT&T, I've been with AT&T about 3 years. I was an analyst with Gartner earlier in my career. I was a product manager for a lot of software products that some of you may have used, Borland C++, Borland JBuilder, and I started my career as a software developer. So that's just a little bit about me. So today, what I want to share with you are some of the findings that we have from our AT&T Cybersecurity Insights report. This one focuses on securing the edge, and you can see it's our 2022 edition. We'll have our 2023 edition coming out within the next couple of months or so. So what do we know about cybersecurity? So cybersecurity is a relatively new industry. It's a relatively new field. And if you think back to the old mainframe days, the biggest cyber risk we had was somebody coming into the data center, kicking out the plug from the wall, or spilling coffee on the keyboard. But the moment computing became democratized, the moment we came out of that data center into the departments with personal computers and started connecting them with a local area network, we saw the rise of the cyber adversary. And the first types of cyber adversaries that we saw, they were just bored students. Bored people kind of saying, I can get into your network, I can leave a digital signature. As we moved on to web apps, mobile apps, cloud apps, we saw the adversary become more determined. Cyber adversaries are now after financial gain. They want to take down your website. They want to take down what you're doing. And they're also well-coordinated nation states that we see out there. So as we start to move to the edge, as computing becomes even more democratized, with edge, we're sitting here, we're on the precipice of a new era of compute. And that new era of compute is really defined by experiential computing. We're no longer tethered to these keyboards of our phones or our tablets or our desktops or our laptops. It's experiential, near real time, and it's based upon all the data that we're seeing collected at the edge. So our cybersecurity postures, our cybersecurity positions, our policies, our practices, our procedures are going to have to change to meet this new democratized world of computing. So let me tell you a little bit about our AT&T Cybersecurity Insights report before I start to jump into the data. So from a demographics perspective, it's a global survey. We surveyed 1,520 people from around the world. North America, South America, EMEA, which includes UK, Ireland, France, and Germany, and also APAC, which includes Australia, India, Singapore, and South Korea. We surveyed people from cybersecurity positions, director level and above, IT positions, director level and above, application development positions, director level and above, and line of business, director level and above. And you'll see here how the line of business is actually playing a very important part as we move to this new era of compute. And we surveyed 6 different vertical markets: financial services, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, energy and utilities, and US SLED, state and local education, higher education. That's just a little bit about who took these surveys. Now, this report, it's vendor neutral. The only place you'll see the name AT&T is on the cover. It is vendor neutral. It's forward-looking. We're looking at what organizations are, what challenges, what obstacles, what opportunities are going to be facing organizations within the next 3 to 5 years. And we're offering some actionable advice. It's based on this quantitative field survey from around the world, and it is also based on qualitative interviews with subject matter experts. For 2022, we published 4 reports. On the left, you'll see our core report. That's a fairly hefty report. It's about 48 pages. And Louis has the PDF of it, and he'll be sending this out in a follow-up email. So anything I'm talking about here today, you'll get in this report, and Louis will be sending it out. In 2022, we also did 4 vertical reports, 1 on healthcare, 1 on manufacturing, 1 on energy and utilities, and 1 on US SLED. So if you're interested in those 4 sub-reports, those 4 vertical reports, you can download them from our website free of charge, or Louis also has those as well, so he can send those to you as well. So I've said the word edge a couple of times, and you always hear the word edge. And you kind of scratch your head and you say, what in the world are they talking about with edge? Are they talking about the network edge, the telco edge, the device edge? What are the security problems that we have to deal with for each of them? And what we found through this survey that we did and through the data that we uncovered and through the subject matter expert interviews we did, we found that edge means different things to different people. If you're a vendor and you're selling solutions for an edge, your definition is going to skew towards those stacks that you're selling. If you're a customer and you're looking at exploring the edge, your definition is going to skew to that definition of edge that you're attempting to build. So for the purpose of this survey, for the purpose of this report, and so for the purpose of this discussion, we'll use these three common characteristics of edge. The first is it's a distributed model of management, intelligence, and networks. The second common characteristic is that your applications, your workloads, your hosting, it's closer to where that data is being generated and consumed. So think of it, if we are on the precipice of this new era of compute that is experiential and near real time, data is key to that. And the third characteristic, the third common characteristic, is that it is software defined. And it doesn't matter if that is in the cloud or on-prem. So I said the word edge a few times, gave you a little diagram earlier. We've all encountered edge computing somewhere along the way, and we probably didn't even know it. So think about this. This is a really, really common example I like to use. When you go into a parking garage and you see those big boards, they'll say, there are 200 spots available here on this first floor, but there are 5 left. You think to yourself, do I really want to drive around that parking lot looking for those 5 empty parking spaces? Or am I going to say, I'm going to go to the second floor and I'll see if there are more spaces? So you drive up to the second floor and it says there are 200 spaces and there are a full 100 spaces empty. That's edge computing. It's that near real-time communication with you about something that you have a vested interest in. So you don't want to drive around on the first floor looking for those 5 rare parking spaces that might be there. So we're starting to see more and more edge types of implementations come about. And I have some more use cases that I'll share as well. So from this study that we did, we found 3 big aha moments. And anytime you do any type of primary research like this, people will always say, what was the most shocking thing that you found? Or what were your big aha moments? These are the 3 big aha moments that we found. The first is people are moving to the edge. It might not be something that you think is edge, but it's about that real-time experiential, data-driven experience through machine to machine in many cases. What we found from our research, 75% of our survey participants, we surveyed 1,520 people, 75% of our survey participants are moving to the edge. It's a pretty impressive number, and we were fairly surprised when we saw this. The second big aha for us is that architectures are still 50-50, on-prem and in the cloud. And we were surprised by this because everything you hear, everybody's moving to the cloud. But we found that there were still a lot of organizations who were living on-prem. And I'll have some data to back this up in the slides following. And the third thing we found is that people are moving to this new compute type, and they have to really evaluate their cybersecurity controls they're using and figure out, what am I going to take with me? What works well now in my current world? And as I move to this new world of edge, what am I going to take with me? And the other big thing we found is that 65% of our survey participants said that they are working with a third-party provider, a service provider, global systems integrator, security consultant, and so on. So what we're seeing is security moving to the edge is not a do-it-yourself project. So as we take a look at edge momentum, remember 75% said they're moving to the edge. What are the top use cases? Here are the top use cases by those 6 different vertical markets that we surveyed. On the far right-hand side, in the dark blue column, these are the use cases that the industries are saying are in full or partial implementation. So they're currently rolled out across the organization. In the light blue column, these are the use cases that are in ideation or proof of concept phase. So when we look through these, we see energy and utilities. Their top use cases, they're looking at remote control operations. So you have an oil rig offshore somewhere. They want to be able to control it remotely as much as possible. So that's the edge they're looking at. From a finance perspective, they're looking at concierge services, and logically that moves into real-time fraud detection. From a healthcare perspective, and this was largely driven by the pandemic, this was consumer virtual care. So the idea that you can meet with your doctor via a video conference of some sort. But think about that. That has to be secured. You have to make sure that that information you're sharing with your doctor is confidential. Any sort of social security number, address, payment information, that has to be secured as well. And then manufacturing. Manufacturing, visual quality inspection or video quality inspection on the assembly line. This was tied with retail loss prevention for our top 2 use cases. So video quality inspection on the assembly line is a really great example of how this really helps the business along the way as well. So video quality inspection on the assembly line, you're manufacturing widgets, they're rolling around on the assembly line, and your assembly line is now controlled by a series of sensors, cameras, and so on. So let's say a machine goes out of calibration, you suddenly know, because it is this near real-time information coming back to you, where a defect may have been inserted on that assembly line. So you stop the production line, you stop the assembly line, recalibrate the machine, and you don't have to you stop it right at the point of the defect being inserted. You don't have to worry about then 2 months later when you realize, oh, we had a problem on the assembly line on this day. Everything was manufactured from this date to this date is now problematic. You then are saving the business all of that money on recalls. So this video quality inspection on the assembly line was one of our top 2 use cases. The other was loss prevention for retail. So these are the types of use cases that people were looking at using. We wanted to find out what types of use cases are going to be in production within the next 3 years. And the way we read this particular graphic is, on the left side, on the y-axis, we have the different vertical markets that we surveyed: energy, finance, healthcare, manufacturing, US SLED, and retail. And then we have the gray bar, the light blue bar, and the dark blue bar. And the low stage is that gray bar. This means people are in the ideation phase, they're just thinking about things. The middle, the mid stage, is proof of concept. They've gone more than just research, they're starting to figure out what they might do. They may have put together a prototype, but it's not in full-scale production. And the dark blue bar is the mature stage. They're in full or partial production with this particular use case. And so if we take a look at the top one, which is energy, the dark blue bar, 40% of survey participants who say they are in the energy sector said that we're going to be in that mature stage within the next 3 years. And so when I look at this, and this is all really good news, because there is not one vertical market there that is below 40%. And you look at this, and this says that organizations across the board, globally, this is a global survey, across the board, globally, in all sorts of different markets, they're moving to this idea of edge computing, which is just awesome, just fantastic. And you see those use cases, and you see how those use cases can be so valuable to that organization. The other thing that we found with our survey, and this is interesting because we asked this question again in 2023, and I'll give you a little bit of a preview. We found that edge computing, today, what people are saying is we are using fairly typical computing devices for our edge. We're using laptops, tablets, desktops, phones, those things that we're all used to using. And that's where 50% of people are. But if you look down towards the bottom, you see autonomous vehicles, cars, planes, drones, rockets. You see robotics. You see mechanical assistance. As we start to progress, 3 years from now, those top types of endpoints that we're using, the standard laptop, desktop, phone, tablet, they will certainly be supplanted by these things such as robotics, autonomous vehicles. So as we see the chipsets become better, as we see the chipsets take advantage of a 5G network, lower latency, higher bandwidth, we're going to see endpoints change. Endpoints are changing. We're starting to see these purpose-built endpoints out there. So it's really important to understand what your endpoints look like today and what your endpoints are going to look like tomorrow and figure out how to protect them. Risk. when we asked people about risk, what did they think about the impact of a cybersecurity event on their business? All of them. This is a scatter plot, and this scatter plot is blown up. So because everything was scrunched together, it really wasn't much of a scatter. Across the board, all 6 vertical markets that we surveyed said, yes, we think there is a cyber risk to going to the edge. However, we're moving. And what they also told us is even though there is a cyber risk, they know that there would be a large impact to the business. They're still moving to the edge. And I look at this, and you can look at this from a pessimistic point of view or an optimistic point of view. And I'm an optimistic person, so I look at this and I say, 5 years ago, this would not have been the case. Because what these survey participants are telling us is that they understand the impact to the business of a cybersecurity event. So they know there is a risk. They know maybe their endpoint might be compromised. They may know that their network might be compromised. But they're saying, we're moving ahead because this is the right thing to do for the business. It's going to give us a better way forward of being competitive, differentiating ourselves against our competitors, giving us better business outcomes. This is what we're doing for the business. So tying a cyber risk and the business together is something that's fairly new. And again, the pandemic drove a lot of this because we moved from this idea of digital transformation, where security became the core of everything that was going on with digital transformation, to really making sure that we're operationalizing everything that we transformed, to really saying we have to live now in a digital-first world. Everything we're doing has to be digital first. And this is what we're seeing with this survey result, where people realize there's a risk, they know it may impact the business, but they're moving forward because the line of business is saying, we need to move forward. We need to become edge providers. We need to make sure that our compute is really experiential, driven by data in near real time. And this is my favorite bit of data ever. This is on, when you get the report, it's on page 17 of the report. This looks at the concern over the attacks at edge. So we know in the previous slide, people said, yeah, we think there's a big risk. We're concerned about it. What are they concerned about? So this is a heat map. And the way you read this is on the y-axis, you see the different types of attacks, starting ransomware as the objective of an attack, going down to attacks against endpoints, all the way down to attacks against the MEC, DDoS, the bottom two. Across the top on the x-axis, we have the total. That gray bar is the total aggregate. And then we go to the different verticals that we surveyed: energy and utilities, finance, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and public sector. So if we take a look at this and we say, well, what is manufacturing most concerned with? So we go over to the manufacturing column, go down, and we see 71.3%, or 71%, say they are most concerned about attacks against the endpoint. And you think about that. Manufacturing, certainly, they're concerned about attacks against the endpoint. They're concerned about something that they may have on their factory floor, helping them to assemble something. They're concerned about those attacks against the endpoint. If you look over at something like finance, for example, you go down to finance, and 68% say they're more concerned about sniffing attacks against the radio access network. So the different industries are concerned about different things. And I'd advise you to all take a look at this particular graphic. As I said, it's on page 17 in the report. Use it as a way to start a discussion within your own organization. Figure out which vertical you fit into, and think about the things that you're most concerned about as you look at your new computing projects that you're putting out there. Are you thinking about these things? Do you have these things secured? Do you have these things under control? So definitely use this as a way to start a discussion within your organization. Next up, the second thing we found, hybrid is a reality. So I mentioned that we surveyed professionals in the line of business. And what we found is that the line of business is telling us we need to move to the cloud. So the line of business is what's pushing the movement to the cloud. The line of business, we see here the top network types for edge, private 5G cellular leads. The line of business is also pushing new networks. The line of business is saying, We need to be at the edge. We need to be doing something different because we need to differentiate ourselves. We need to deliver these positive business outcomes. Now, line of business pushing some new technology is fairly unique. We've not seen this with other technologies. Usually it's the more technical group that pushes it. But the line of business is pushing this new technology. What we also found is that the line of business said, yeah, we're pushing this new technology because we need to deliver these better business outcomes, but we are not doing it unless we are in lockstep with the cybersecurity team. So we're not moving to any of these new technologies. 5G, edge, cloud, we're not moving to any of these new technologies unless we are in lockstep with the cybersecurity team. Now, this is something highly unusual because what we've seen inside of organizations for so long is we've seen these silos that have been erected over the past 40, 50 plus years. We've seen that the operations team doesn't necessarily talk to the application development team. The application development team certainly doesn't talk to the cybersecurity team. So we're starting to see those silos erode. We're starting to see more need for collaboration internally. And this is something that for so long we've been saying, yeah, we need to have this, make this happen. And on the application development side, when I was an analyst back in 2002, I was writing about the need for application security. So 20 years ago, I was writing about the need for application security, and we're still talking about the need for application security. So we haven't moved that much. But the edge is going to make us collaborate more. It's going to erode those silos that have been previously erected over the past 4 or 5 plus decades. What we also wanted to find out is where are people with their cybersecurity controls? They're moving to this new generation of computing. And they have these cybersecurity controls that have served them very, very well over the past several years. But what about when they move to the edge? And we hear so much about converging our cybersecurity controls and our network functions. And we saw on the panel this morning, really good discussion about SASE, Zero Trust, SD-WAN. And what we found out here is if you take a look at those 2 big blue circles on the far right, we see it's pretty much tied at 50%. So combined, cybersecurity and network functions in the cloud, things such as SASE, 51%, 51.3% are saying, yes, we're doing that. And then we said, what about combined cybersecurity and network functions on-prem? 51%, 51.9%, almost 52% said, yes, we're doing it on-prem. So there's a real split there. And if you take a look at some of the vertical reports, you'll see that vertical markets are not as tied. So for example, in healthcare, they are moving far more to cloud. In manufacturing, they are far more aligned like this, almost tied. So it's interesting to see where these different vertical markets are going with combining their cybersecurity functions and their network functions on-prem or in the cloud. So legacy controls. We're moving to this new era of compute. We have all these legacy cybersecurity controls that we've used over the past several years. And what are we going to do with them? Are they still going to serve the same purpose for us as we move to the edge? So this shows us the cybersecurity controls by network type. So the y-axis has the network type, and the x-axis has the types of cybersecurity controls. So we see that things like intrusion detection, things such as data loss prevention, things such as endpoint protection are still very, very popular by the different network types. But I would encourage you to go back and look at this and take a look and say, what are we using with our different network types? Most organizations are living with a hybrid network world now. What types of cybersecurity controls are you using with those network types? And this shows the preferred cybersecurity controls by component type. So by your classic components, by your laptops, your desktops, your phones, your tablets, all the way down to MEC, the multi-access edge compute, to some of those purpose-built types of devices. And we see that things such, again, intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, firewall, are still very much used. But as you move forward, are you still going to use these same types of cybersecurity controls? In our 2023 research, we asked this same question. And what we're being told is that the more use cases you have for edge, the more scrutiny you're going to put on your cybersecurity controls. So at the beginning, people are saying, we're just going to use the same things and we'll be all right. What people are telling us in our 2023 research is they're saying, as we start to do more edge work, as we start to see more IoT devices pop up, we're going to have to look at different types of cybersecurity controls. More controls around data, more controls around what we're doing on the application development side, because our applications are changing. Applications are going from being very GUI, graphical user interface based, to being these non-GUI types of headless applications that are working machine to machine in an IoT world. We also wanted to find out about the perceived cost benefit of these cybersecurity controls. So again, this is where people are today. If we came back here 3 years from now and took a look at this, my bet is this would be completely flipped. And we would also have some new entrants on this as well. So right now, people are saying the best thing we can do for cybersecurity controls is firewall with a network edge. Now, moving forward, is that going to be the best thing? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we'll start to see things such as firewalls be disaggregated or become part of the network, and your network function controls that because suddenly the network is malleable. It's software defined. You can do a whole lot more with it. So these firewalls at the network edge right now, they're saying, yeah, that's the best thing we have, and that's the best thing we're going to deploy moving forward. What they also told us is that they didn't find much value in things like DDoS protection. And we looked at this and we said, you know, that's really fascinating because DDoS is almost like an insurance policy. It's sitting out there, it's running, you don't think about it, but when you have a DDoS attack, you really need that DDoS capability. And what we found out in our 2023 research that will be coming out is DDoS is now, for edge, the #1 attack concern. So people are more concerned about DDoS attacks now than they ever were. But yet here they're ranking DDoS last. And they're saying, you know, maybe we'll take it, maybe we won't. But they will be rethinking DDoS. The other thing we found, and we are really thrilled by this, is that people are investing in security early. They're proactively investing in security for their edge projects. And the way we read this is we have the different vertical markets. So healthcare, finance, public sector, retail, energy and utilities, manufacturing. That light blue spot in the middle, that is the sweet spot of what people are spending on security. That light blue spot in the middle constitutes 11 to 20%. What people told us is that sweet spot, they are spending somewhere between 11 to 20% on their overall cybersecurity budget from their whole edge budget. So if we take a look at the top one, healthcare, healthcare is saying that 44% of healthcare people are spending somewhere between 11 to 20% of their overall edge budget on cybersecurity. And again, this is really positive because people are thinking about cybersecurity proactively. They're not waiting until an event happens to say, yeah, we'll go ahead and invest in it. So there's this proactive spending on cybersecurity. People are seeing that it's an integral part of what's happening with edge. So what did we learn from this report? We learned people are moving to the edge. They're moving to the edge quickly. It's eroding silos. It's going to cause a lot of collaboration to happen, which is really positive. And look at your cybersecurity controls now. Figure out what you can leave behind. Figure out what you can take with you. And as always, realize and remember that cybersecurity is a journey. It's not a destination. So thanks very much. And do we have time for questions? Where's Louis? Not your call?
Let's keep rolling. All right, no questions. All right, thank you. There we go. Nice job. All right, thank you so much, Theresa. Well, we have reached almost the end, but not quite.